Are you putting the board?
Back here, anywhere, I put these seats out for the guests and the speakers.
Oh, I was gonna say, is the board over there?
What's that?
Is the board over there?
The party?
The board.
No, the board will be back here.
Oh.
The guests will be there. She's doing on the CPC.
Nice.
So I had you also, because of what you said, just back here everywhere. I was probably smart enough.
Thank you. I don't even know.
What was that? We usually do it for
What? She was sick. Let me text her to see it. I know. Coronado Park.
Yeah. You can do it up there, but just address it.
If I was somebody who was.
All right.
You know, just
And that's the problem. I agree with 100%. So.
I just had to take a day off from Santa. Well, actually, no, I still have that.
Santa Fe.
I actually had to agree with Pete Nellis.
Really?
It's really hard for me to do that. Sometimes he's
They
right.
just.
And he's got a lot of experience. So it's like, we sit up there, all the big fucking ones, we sit up there. Where does the queen sit? Yeah, where does the queen? Where does the queen sit? I don't want to be.
I was picturing the council members would sit back here, but it doesn't matter. It's probably small enough to where it doesn't matter.
So,
Yeah, wherever you want to sit.
We used to just sit wherever. We used this room for about a year.
Okay.
And we could fit like 45
well,
people.
let's say something.
I know.
Excuse me.
I gotta go towards Cali Beach.
Chief Medina was here, he was there, and he started to speak, and I cut him off.
I know you've done that before, Roy. That's all right.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Who would,
He's gonna do our
contact,
Then I've got Sean.
NAPT to get some kind of statement about
That should be fun.
Yeah, then I think I'll take the rest of your.
I'm sick of it,
I don't think anyone from Deputy would, because it's not an APA state. It would be,
Just sit.
Probably Carol Pierce.
Yes.
or Elizabeth Tony, Family Community Safety.
Yes.
No, I don't.
Okay, this woman asked me and I wasn't sure at the beginning. The only person I could think of was Lieutenant Garcia, Lieutenant Garcia.
She don't know, I mean, she doesn't have anything to do with safe harbor space.
Yeah, she's community outreach.
Yeah.
So if somebody from the community
I got you.
needed to know something. But
Normally, but that one is not an APA thing at all, that's I mean, we'll be consulted for security stuff, concerns in the immediate area. But that is, I mean, we'll be working with FCS and ACS, but that is an FCS and ACS project. So Carol or Elizabeth would be the ones that they would need to contact for any state. Carol's great about it.
Hey, buddy.
How are you, sir?
Good to see you again. You're afraid of our CPA meeting at BCSR. Oh, yeah, that's our meeting. You're gonna do our Foothill CPC next month, huh? This will be September.
On the 13th, right?
Yeah.
13th of September.
Yeah, that'll be good. I don't know how many times I want to hear your same speech. Can you change it up a little bit?
I'll defer to the commander here.
Defer to the commander.
I don't know if
That's a problem. You can. All right. The commander is are we starting?
It is 5:57.
Are we
So we have
starting?
like
We're
2
getting
more
close.
minutes. I think we're waiting on a few more people.
Okay.
I'm gonna choose the smaller room because it's a
I
little.
can't tell until
Oh,
the practice session. You can't tell us.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, don't want me to just pass it.
Guys, could you all stop talking for a minute, everybody? Everybody, I chose this room because it's a little more intimate. The acoustics are worse than I remember them being. So it's really important that people speak only one at a time, because otherwise we're going to drown the whole wave
If
of
we,
sound.
if we close the doors, it might.
Yeah.
Our last meeting back in Catholic school.
Oh, yeah, I made some of those.
That was really nice of them.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just gonna go for a while.
You're right.
All right.
That was an improvement, a huge.
Thank you, man.
Okay, we have a quorum. Rudy Garcia and Dick Winterbottom contacted all of us, right, saying they can't be here tonight.
Yeah.
And Jacqueline's gonna be here a bit late, but she does intend to be here. That's the main class at 6. So, move to call the meeting to order. Who can make that motion for me?
I saw
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
it.
We've all had a chance to read the minutes.
Yes.
And Matisa did a really good job this time, and Tom did a really good job of refining them. But Matisa, if you get a chance, Kelly, to tell her that her minutes were excellent this time.
Okay.
That's right, isn't it? It's fair enough to say.
Move approved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Old business? Old business? I don't think so. New business, our next 2 meetings, appear to be spoken for. We are doing a meeting next month on downtown, they call it myths and realities. And then the next meeting is with the, how do I
Transgender,
transgender
community services.
community services, they'll be on. And then October will be our last meeting. We don't meet in November because of Thanksgiving and we don't meet in December. So we set for the rest of the year. And that brings us to Mr. St. Onge.
That's quick.
Oh, my goodness.
That was very quick. All right.
Very efficient.
Well, thank you very much for having me. My name is Glenn St. Onge. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Albuquerque Police Department. I retired about 6 years ago. Worked some federal contracts for security stuff, and then the county called me and asked if I wanted to head up their lead program, which was kind of it become a little bit stagnant because of COVID, and there was no training, and everything was closed. So I came on board with the county, and we looked at the program, and I knew right away we needed to basically hit the ground running and get out with officers, get training scheduled, start reaching out to our community partners. And since then, so I came on in March of 21, so almost a year and a half, almost 2 years. We went from lead being launched in Albuquerque in 2019-ish, and 2019 and 2020, there was like about 30 referrals for the whole year. That included BCSO and also APB. Now that we've really got out there, our restrictions have loosened. We're going out doing training and meeting community members. Right now, we're on pace for 300 referrals for this year. On pace for that. This month in August, I think it's actually been one of our busiest months with referrals, and that's from everybody. That's from law enforcement, community partners. ACS is one of our big partners for these referrals, and I think we're over 30 referrals just for this month. So it's been a really, really good month. And let me back up just a little bit. So the LEAD program was designed, it started back in Seattle in 2011, and it was designed to kind of shift the focus away from incarceration. Because what we've seen for the past 40, 50 years is the war on drugs really hasn't worked. And we really need a huge pendulum shift to keep the people in jail that need to be in jail and look at these low-level offenders such as property crimes, misdemeanor stuff, behavioral health related issues, instead of incarceration, we need to divert those people directly into treatment. And that's where that pendulum is shifted to, I guess the best way to say it is just getting away from incarceration, because incarceration is not doing these people any good at all. And it just really exacerbates that cycle of recidivism. So right now in our LEAD program, we have 34 active engaged clients, and not one of them has been rearrested since being involved with our program and being hooked up with our case managers for intensive case management, meaning we just don't give out a number and say, here's a number, go forth and call it. No, our case managers will meet you where they're at, whether it be under a bridge, Coronado Park, well, not Coronado Park now, but you know, you get the drift of what I'm saying. Our case managers are out in the field every single day. And they will pick that person up, take them to their appointments, whether it be a medical appointment, trying to get their license, they'll take them to those appointments, as well as trying to keep them away from the criminal justice system, as well as negative interactions with law enforcement. Trying to think what else. It's a really great program. It takes a while. It's kind of, I always go back to CIT, the crisis intervention. I ran a CIT program for the better part of a decade before I retired, and CIT was not well received when it first came out. They said, "Oh, this will never work." You know, talking to people different. Well, it does work, and we've shown that using CIT has a huge reduction in uses of force. Instead of booking that person, getting the person to the hospital. And I come to LEAD with that attitude, is it's going to take LEAD a while to basically make it the golden standard, like how CIT is. CIT is the golden standard of how we interact with people with behavioral health issues. And we see that so many times where criminal activity is really connected to the substance use or a behavioral health issue. And that's where we can come in. Back in September, we launched our expansion program. So it's not just law enforcement that can make referrals, it's anybody now. Business partners, family members, community members, you name it, you can make a LEAD referral if that person knows that they're being referred, if that makes sense. They have to be amenable to the program. And another part of it is we do have eligibility criteria. So the easiest way to, I guess, put it in a nutshell is any violent felony convictions within 3 years, you're disqualified. And that's homicide, rape, basically, armed robberies, anything violent. With a conviction within 3 years, you're ineligible for the program. Some permanent disqualifiers are any offenses on children, confidential informants we don't take because it just really creates it makes things kind of muddled up when you have a confidential informant in a program, because we don't want our program to be synonymous with confidential informants, because then people will think, oh, the LEAD program is for snitches. So we don't want that at all. The LEAD program is strictly to get you help and keep you out of jail and keep you out of the criminal justice system. What also makes our program very, very unique is you don't have to be clean to be part of our program. You can still use, as long as you're not driving semi-truckloads of meth over the border, you can still be in our program and be using. Whereas our case managers really, with that intensive case management, work towards that abstinence or harm reduction, meaning instead of 10 grams a week, let's try to use 7. And then the next week, instead of 7, let's try to use 5. Clean needles, educating them on Narcan or how to not OD. So it's a really, the program has a lot of moving parts. There's 9 counties in New Mexico right now that are either launching LEAD or just launched LEAD. I would say ours is the longest running program right now, coming up on 3 years-ish. Santa Fe did have a program back in 2014. It was only there for 2-3 years, and then kind of the funding ran out, and then the change in administration. So the program kind of died, but it's back now. They restarted it in Santa Fe. Talking about strategic planning, you'll find if you've been around long enough or been in the department long enough, there's always the flavor of the week or the flavor of the month. And there's never really any strategic planning to keep a program going and staying with it. So with our LEAD program, we do have federal funding, which ends next year. So October 1 next year, our federal funding ends. But what we've done is we've secured state funding as well as county funding, and Congress has also earmarked us another close to $500,000 to keep the program going. So leading out is not going anywhere. We've really tried hard to make this a very 50,000-foot view on how we can keep this program going into the long future. So with that, I'll be quiet and I'll answer any questions you guys have. Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering about the 34 clients. How long have they been part of your program?
I don't have those stats in front of me, but some have been a couple months, some could have been just a few weeks. As long as they've done an intake, meaning they've done all the paperwork with the case manager and they're engaged with our program. And there's no time limit for our program. So if the case manager is going to work with you for a year, they'll work with you for a year. We have had some success stories where we had an individual is clean now, got an apartment, got a job, bought a car, and is still clean to this day. And that was off of actually a diversion from law enforcement for fentanyl. And the success stories are there. And again, it's a new program, so I hope that answered your question. But it just depends on when they did their intake. It could have been 6 months, 2 weeks, or a year.
Well, I'm just wondering about the follow-up because recidivism rate is critical. So have there been any folks that, like 3 years ago, when we started, that are still in the program, or you followed up over the 3 years?
That's a great question. I don't have those numbers because I just came on about a year and a half ago. But again, our program is kind of stagnant for the 2019, 2020 time period. So we really don't have a lot of numbers for that time period.
Thank you. But you did increase significantly, didn't you? You went from, was it 2019? You were in the double digits and now you're in the triple digits?
Yes, so I believe 2019, there was 34 referrals for the whole year. 2020, I think 42. And then 2021, we had 173. And then now 2022, I think we're at about 243 for the year.
That's good. So referral is just the first step, right?
Yes.
So how many, it's again, we're asking you statistic questions and you're not prepared. Off the top of your head,
Yes.
how many referrals have actually led to more than just a referral?
So right now, statistically, and I had the email from my partner was supposed to be here, but he had another engagement. So statistically, we were running about a 48% intake rate, and it really fluctuates our intake rate to referral. And I think right now we're a little bit lower on the referral to intake rate, and that's one thing that we've really strived to close. Is what we found was with a warm handoff, meaning say the commander here is out with somebody and he's going to make a lead referral. He calls my case manager. The case manager comes out, and what we found was there was a 78% success rate with somebody that had a warm handoff with an officer to the case manager to be doing an intake and then being engaged with the program. Right now, what we're seeing is, okay, great, we get an intake, but then my case manager can't find that person. So that, it could be an officer on graveyard or late swing shift when the case managers aren't working. They'll do the referral and they do a great job. And then it's, okay, I have to find this person at Wyoming and Central.
They take off.
And they take off, and it's very, very hard to track these people down because about 50% of our clients are unhoused or they're homeless. So it's very, very hard to track some of these people down. So when I go out and do training, I really, really try to hammer it the officers and deputies and people, hey, call the case manager so we can get that warm handoff. Great quick story from today. I was doing an outreach at a Walgreens, and we're dealing with this, a guy was laying down on the side of Walgreens, and ACS was talking to him, and I recognized his name. And I said, wait a minute, aren't you in the LEAD program? He goes, yeah, I lost my phone. And I said, my case manager's working with you. And he said her name, and I was like, I will call her right now. And she came out and got him and then took him to the care campus. And they helped him get his medications today. And then they took him to finish his intake at the care campus. And that's why it's a small world. That's how important it is having that case manager there with that person. Because we were able to connect with him when I called her. She said, oh my gosh, I've been looking for him. I couldn't find him anywhere. I was like, oh, he's up there, San Pedro, Paseo Norte. So we ended up getting him into services today. So it worked out. But yes, it's very hard when we can't find that person. And that's why it's not just Albuquerque, it's Longmont, it's a lot of LA County. They have the same problems is that referral to intake route. Is kind of why we're really working hard to close that gap. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does.
How many counselors do you have?
So right now we are budgeted for 5 case managers. I have 2 full-time right now. One's on maternity leave coming back next month, and we just hired a 4th. So yes, it's just, and I'm on national meetings every week, and it's hard to hire people right now, especially in the clinical fields, case management. It's very, very hard. Everybody's having that issue of hiring case managers for their programs or clinicians or you name it. But fortunately, we just hired our 4th. She accepted the offer. And then we'll start working on our 5th. So.
We're talking about just reaching out to the homeless and trying to do this harm reduction stuff with someone from the city a few weeks ago. And one of her big points was that sometimes it takes multiple contacts before you actually start making some progress. Do you guys see that, and how do you deal with that?
Great question. And yes, I firmly believe that is, studies have shown that multiple contacts with the same person will start breaking down those barriers, gaining trust, building that rapport, and then to where they may be engaged with services or accept services. Or we worked at Coronado Park for months and months and months before finally a gentleman accepted. We talked to him every time, and now he's in the LEAD program, and the only thing we're waiting on for him is housing. He's been compliant, he's clean. We got him a part-time job. He's still on the streets, but he's working. He's really, really trying, and I foresee him soon to be a success story. But yeah, we contacted him probably 3-4 times before he really engaged with the program.
How would you compare it for, in like case by case, what the cost of this is compared to the cost of the standard system of putting them in a hospital and jail?
Oh gosh, yeah, this is much cheaper, much cheaper. When you look at, the jail, you have, the roof over their head, operating costs for 3 meals a day, transporting them to court if they need to go to court, or paying overtime for officers to go to court. What they've shown, and I know Seattle had those stats, and Santa Fe had some preliminary stats where it was cheaper by like thousands and thousands of dollars a day almost, to engage that person with the LEAD program rather than incarceration or tying the court systems up. So it's a much more economically viable solution to incarceration or courts, or that same person being transported over and over and over again to the hospitals. I remember when, way back in the day, we did a study on one individual who had hundreds of transports to the hospital for intoxication. Excuse me. And I think between police response, fire response, ambulance response, and then hospital costs, this one individual cost $250,000 just in costs that the city and the hospitals incur. Whereas, okay, well, let's get them to treatment instead of just keep transporting them and really work with that person. So yes, there are huge economic benefits to really getting into this program and I guess staying with it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Before you go on, I want to apologize for the echo in here. I have fonder memories of this room. I don't remember the acoustics being so reverberating. And I thought a smaller room would be more appropriate for us to meet in. So the person who put that up, I do apologize. And then there's another question.
No, that's it.
Excuse me, you mentioned the care center. Where is the care center and how many individuals does it accommodate?
So the care campus used to be Max. It's the old Max, it's now called Care Campus. It's totally different than when I was a young Southeast officer. They have a detox, a public media program where people can walk in and stay the night if they need to. They just expanded it to more beds. So you have obviously the male and the female side. You also have, it's almost like a crisis triage center. So it's 42 beds, 38 beds for acute, not acute. So if somebody needed emergency psychiatric services, of course, they'd either go to 2600 Marble or someplace like that. But if it's kind of some low-level psychiatric behavioral health related stuff, they can go to the care campus and receive treatment. On the backside, we also have a live-in program it's very strict and very regimented. You sign contracts, you can't be on your cell phone. It's education, it's job, learn how to do a job interview, they can live there. It was really for young mothers for that program. And it's like little mini apartments is what it is. And it's usually 2 to 4 individuals stay in one kind of big apartment, the central living room and that. So and during COVID, it was almost vacant, but things are starting to turn up again when we're getting referrals and getting people linked into services again. So it's a great campus, lots and lots of services there, and it's county run. So, and I'm sure the Gateway Center, whatever that opens, will be, I think, really great for the community.
Where's the care center?
5901 Zoom. So between San Mateo and San Pedro on the north side of the street.
Excuse me, you mentioned that referrals, they can be made by family members.
Absolutely, yes.
Are there also court requested referrals?
Court requested.
Judicial or by a judge?
We've had one, and that came from the district attorney where the charges were dismissed. And again, that's catching them on the backside. The district attorney, the charges were dismissed, and the district attorney said, hey, this person would be great for me because I really don't want to see him again. So they referred him to leave. So yes, we can get court referrals, but ideally we should be catching them on the front end rather than the back end.
Thank you.
I have heard from someone that there was some resistance to begin with when lead was first introduced nationwide in other states and stuff, from the police saying that they earnestly believe that anybody on drugs, it was a choice, and why should they help them? Has there been a change in that attitude?
Yes, I'm really glad you brought that up because that's where that whole culture shift needs to happen. And I can tell you, the Coronado and I, between the both of us, we've probably made thousands of arrests throughout our careers. What good did that do for the community? And don't get me wrong, I've taken some bad guys off the streets, but all the low-level drug stuff that I've done throughout my career really didn't make a difference for that person, right, or the community. So it comes with that mindset of, okay, what we're doing is not working. The judges are dismissing the charges anyway. We're tying up the court systems. We're tying up the jails. So why don't we do something different? So what's really nice about Albuquerque is it's been fairly well received. between the sheriff's department, between the Albuquerque Police, the district attorney's office is on board, the public defender's office is on board, we have ACS, city, county, so we really have a holistic approach to lead in this community. But yes, there is some resistance. You get your old school guys that are like, nope, I'm taking them to jail. And okay, lead is totally discretionary. It's discretionary on the officer or the deputy if they want to refer to lead, your choice. But what I try to instill in the deputies and officers is just try something different. Ask the why. Why did you do this? Why did, how did you start doing drugs? Really start almost like motivational interviewing. And what we've shown is a lead referral is less, it takes far less time to do a lead referral and do a handoff to a case manager than it does to write the report, put handcuffs on them, put them in the car, drive them all the way out to the jail, and then you're gonna have to wait because maybe the medic's on the pod. So it's, we're actually doing a study on that. We have the numbers. Our independent evaluators, we have the initial numbers showing that doing a lead referral takes far less time than actually booking somebody. I can get you those numbers if you want.
Sure.
But yes, some communities, they want nothing to do with it. I know a couple program managers here in New Mexico that the sheriffs are like, nope, we're not doing it. Some of the smaller police departments in the 9 counties are like, nope, we're not doing this. They need to be in jail. And that's very, in my opinion, again, being retired, it's very archaic thinking that jail will benefit somebody for a minor possession charge, where it's not really helping them.
So where's the dividing point? I'm hearing what you're saying. This is the second time I've heard it. I'll hear you again next month. But I go out with the violence intervention team program members at APD, and 90% of the people are not there. They go knock on the door, we'll go out, and what I'm finding is that you've got grandparents basically raising juvenile delinquents. The grandparents are in the fear of their life. These kids, these punks, are in control. And I can't tell you the houses we go to in the high-end part of town where bullet holes, where the kids are shooting at their grandparents. Grandparents are scared to death. And they would love for their kids to be in a program, obviously. But the reality is, these kids are not going to show up for the most part. They're not going to be found. They're going to disappear. And they know that somebody's coming to hand in a little flyer and some free iPad and a social program. And they don't want that. There are a percentage of people that do, and I'm for that. But what is the demographic that you're looking at? In New Mexico, 52%. New Mexico has a 52% rate of recidivism for people that commit crime. And that's a high number. Now, if you catch somebody when you're young and it's their first offense, then I think you've got like a 90% chance of reaching that. But it's all voluntary. And when it's voluntary, you've got a tough sale. I mean, what you're trying to do, what APD is doing with the violence intervention program is not easy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, it's admirable.
And bringing that up, it's also, it brings a good point too. Lead is not for everyone. It's just not. When we look at patterns of behavior, we've had some people refer to the lead program, and it's like been a handful where we're like, we're not going to take them. They're not ready for lead, just based off their pattern of behavior of violence. They may not have had a conviction, but we really do look at the pattern of violence to say, okay, they're not ready for lead yet. Let's see if we can link into something else.
So what is your demographic that you're having the most success with? Which your model that seems to work the best?
I've seen a lot of success from 24 to 32-year-olds.
Wow.
Lead is for 18 and above Bernalillo County residents only. Now, if you frequent Bernalillo County a lot, then we could probably get you in the program. But what we've seen is not a whole lot of younger lead
So you're like
participants.
24, 32, that's your demographic.
Yeah. And we have some older ones, but I would say that demographic, we've been having a lot of great success with.
So that's a little bit different than APD's violence intervention program, demographic, much younger.
Yeah. I agree.
So I learned something from the last time.
You'll hear it again.
I was under the impression that violence intervention was under the latest ACS.
I believe it is now. We were at an ACS presentation, you and me, today, and they said it had been incorporated into the ACS.
I think the outreach that I was at today, I just learned that, so they moved VIP under ACS.
So I encourage everyone to go on a ride along with the violence intervention program team people. It's available to community policing council members. I've got 3 of them, and they're eye openers, and it's really worthwhile. You've got Angel Garcia, who's a former gang guy in LA, that is the social worker. Jason Oplis, the deputy commander, was in charge of the gang units in Chicago PD for 17 years. And then the ACS person, Dawn, and they're excellent to ride with them and see what they're going through. And
Is that something that's set through the 3-year area commander? Or-
well, actually, I can email Roland Jason's email address, and I'll do that when I get home. And you get a hold of Jason, and they know I'm going to give a pitch tonight. I think they know, but they're more than willing to allow you folks to go out with them. And it's usually an 8-hour thing. They do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's interesting to watch the parents and the grandparents. And you know, these folks want help, and the problem is getting the kid to show up. But still, it's a good lifeline. It's a great program, and in conjunction with this young man's event, it's a good combo.
It also, I assume, your program, do you work closely with the specialty courts, the metro specialty courts, or is that a separate thing? Because it seems a lot of the stuff that you do, some of the specialty courts also do.
Yes, so we've been trying to get lead linked up with, and we've had great conversation with them with outreach court. So and lead is not just to get out of jail free part. So if the person didn't comply with the program, or they didn't finish their intake, then we send it back to the officer saying, hey, go ahead and file charges. What we've tried to do is streamline that process to one courtroom, one judge, and that's police judge, I believe. And how do I say this? So it's kind of hard because she's a metro court judge, and a lot of the stuff we defer is felonies. So we've been trying to work out kind of the policies and procedures to really streamline lead, and that way, so that way, if the officer files charges, we let the DA and outreach court know, and that person is immediately funneled to the outreach court. So we're still working on that.
I was just wondering, because it seems like the functions kind of tie in the way the drug courts and the other courts. A few of the other courts would probably.
And that's why lead is so great when we can defer them away from the drug courts, the outreach courts, because what are your conditions of release? Don't do drugs, don't break the law. And that's not realistic to say, stop doing drugs right now. It's not realistic.
Why
That's
you pointed at me?
sorry. Example.
I could offer drugs.
Just in case. Just in case. That's why the beauty of lead is you can still use. You don't have to be abstinent to be part of our program. So that's the beauty of it.
I know that's one of the goals, or it was one of the goals in the state outdoor spaces. I keep saying open spaces. When it is when Dr. Algin presented to us, based on the Denver space, he said that as long as you use in your own little tent and don't deal, that's okay. It sounds similar, as long as you don't, and that's a given, right? As long as you don't sell drugs to anybody else.
Like separating out the issue of your drug use from your homeless problem.
Yes. Yeah, and it's hard too. I mean, selling, you get to another realm, because when you sell, that's more of a criminal enterprise when you sell rather than use it. Yes, that's a whole other realm. And actually that was one of our permanent disqualifiers, was trafficking. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense if we're going to take a homicide, convicted homicide person that got convicted outside of the 3-year window, but we will never take a trafficking conviction. So we changed it. We added trafficking to within that 3-year window, because it just didn't make sense.
You take homicide people.
As long as it's after the 3-year window. So it could have been manslaughter or something like that. It used to be 10 years. And when we looked at it, We had officers, southeast officers, valley officers saying, hey, I could refer a lot of people to you, but they don't meet that 10-year window because of whatever was in their past. So in our policy coordinating group, the DA, public defenders, all of us got together, and I said, well, hey, how's 3 to 5 years? And everybody liked it, and then our referrals went through the roof. After that, when we kind of adjusted our criteria to come into our program, it really went through the roof, so I think that helped.
We have one question on the line from Karen Raff. Curious, do the lead participants ever refer their friends or family to the program?
Great question, and yes, we have had walk-ins to the care campus, and they've said, hey, my friend's in the lead program, and we've actually had quite a few self-referrals into the program.
A lot of the stuff we've talked about all year, everybody's talking about also drug problems in Albuquerque. Since you guys have been around drug problems for years, is the drug problem we're seeing now different qualitatively or whatever than we were seeing 5 or 10 years ago?
I would think so, but it was more so with the younger crowd now, I think, especially fentanyl.
What's different fentanyl compared to what we used to serve?
Fentanyl will kill you with just a little bit of powder. I mean, 1 or 2 micrograms of it can kill you.
That's why I want everybody getting Narcan.
Yeah, but it's pretty cheap. It's about $2 a pill right now.
The blues.
Yeah, you buy a bag of pot, it's a little more expensive. You buy meth, coke, it's a little more expensive. So this is a pretty quick high. I mean, they don't understand the risks that they're taking by using it, but it is a lot cheaper.
So there's a lot of that around.
Yeah, there's a ton, and it's coming from across the border. I mean, we've, I think, collected over 6,000 to 7,000 pills in the Valley Area Command in the past month and a half.
Right.
More seeds.
Yeah, that was
Well, that was 4,500, but that was just at Coronado Park. Right. And then, I mean, the sheriff's department just seized a couple 100,000 pills, and our narc scene just seized a couple 100,000 pills.
Do we have a meth problem here?
Yes, it's not as
Not as bad as it used to be.
bad as it used to be. Because, you know, after, I'll be honest, I don't know if you're fans of Breaking Bad, but after the Breaking Bad thing, when that went live and it kind of sensationalized methamphetamine as the blue pure, whatever they want to call it, we had a lot of meth problems.
I think it's, you know, it's kind of piggybacking on what the commander said. I don't think I've ever seen it so bad as far as the proliferation of the fentanyl and all that stuff. I mean, when we worked, you know, when I worked the international district, my whole career, I pretty much worked in the international district. It was coke, a little bit of meth here and there. You'd see heroin every now and again. And then those really kind of went away when the opioid epidemic hit. And we were taking overdose after overdose.
A lot of pills.
Yeah, they would crush up their Oxycontin, oxycodone, and they'd shoot that. And I don't know how many OD deaths I took with that, but now because it's the fentanyl, have you ever heard the term chasing the high? So these people that unfortunately get addicted to these, you know, the fentanyl, that very first high is the highest they will ever be off of that. Every time after that, they're chasing that high. And that's why we have so many overdose deaths with fentanyl. And I think I'll pull the stat for you, but I think last year New Mexico had a 127% increase in fentanyl overdose deaths. Just New Mexico.
Is that different than the rest of the US?
I think New Mexico always is.
Always the worst.
And it's because
about double the national average for,
close to the border.
yeah.
It's easy to bring across. I mean, the customs folks and Homeland Security guys, they do a phenomenal job. I mean, one of my buddies is down there at the El Paso sector port, and he sends me the pictures of some of the seizures that are coming through there. I mean, that's maybe 1/8 of what's actually coming through because they can't stop and search every vehicle. I mean, they're sending it in suitcases. They're trying to do everything they can to get here. They'll send a smaller shipment, so police and local law are all over that. And then at the same time, you got a bad run by a semi that's fully loaded with 80,000 pounds of something. So, I mean, they're stupid, but they're smart.
But we also have homegrown fentanyl, don't we have
We've had some
places
people,
in the state, not necessarily here in New Mexico, but in the States.
in the US, we do. It's not, I mean, it's similar to what's coming from across the border. You know, people try and cut it with everything so they can make it spread out even more and they can get more for their buck. You know, like heroin in the past, they would mix it with other stuff, cocaine, they would put baby powder, they put powdered sugar, just to kind of extend it and make it more volume for money. Formaldehyde, yeah, that was killing a lot of people, just so they could get more money for what they're selling, and they're selling junk. And I mean, we had a lot of deaths because of the overdose and what they were putting in their body, or the end user would get mad that someone sold them fake stuff and killed them, or have somebody kill them.
And it would come in waves. You would have like, when heroin kind of made a little bit of a comeback. I remember, I don't know what week it was or what month, we had so many overdose deaths because it was some bad heroin that came up from Mexico. And there was just, you probably remember, it was just, we had OD after OD after OD. So it was like horrible. It was cut horribly. But kind of, and I'll be quiet after this, I promise. Going back to kind of like the harm reduction is now, if I'm not mistaken, with the Harm Reduction Act of this year, fentanyl test strips are decriminalized. So it's not illegal to basically test your fentanyl to make sure it's okay, so you can use it and then not OD.
They call it the one pill that kills. The DEA holds the Citizens Police Academy if you're interested, and it's worthwhile attending. But most of the fentanyl that we're getting is controlled by the Sinaloa cartel. Albuquerque is heavily cartel controlled. That stuff is coming up from Phoenix through Albuquerque, but it's distributed on the eastern seaboard. We have a serious fentanyl problem in Albuquerque. It's extremely
And
bad.
it's cheap.
Fentanyl is an industrial manufactured narcotic. It's not grown, purified from hobbies like here.
Yeah, it's not like the fentanyl like you get in the hospital, like for.
A $50 pill pressing machine will make all the fentanyl pills you want. It's extremely deadly.
I'm in the middle of an extremely good book that Commander Diesel recommended, called The Least of Us. And God, it's hard to read. Normally I manage to read a book in a day with some speed readers, so I can read it pretty quickly. And I can't read this one because it just I have to stop and think,
Yeah.
oh my God. And one of the interesting things is there are programs like yours, but they're not lead. And they have individual case studies of people, and nearly all of them don't make it. Nearly all of them go back to the drugs. And I know you don't have the figures for that, but it sounds like your successes, your failures are ahead of your successes, or?
I wouldn't say so much failures. I would say it's more just closing that referral to intake rate. You know, one thing I always try to tell, you know, some of our national partners and some of the people in the state is, you know, Albuquerque is different from Seattle, like night and day, or Portland, or LA, or, and we do our best to get these people engaged with the program. But again, it's voluntary and they don't have to be engaged with the program. So I think that's kind of hard with, you know, some of our statistics where, you know, it's like, we close that gap and then boom, it opens up again because, you know, they're just not ready to quit or be engaged with the program. But we keep trying that re-engagement and trying. So I wouldn't say so much classify them as failures, but it's more just getting them engaged with the program. So.
I think we're very fortunate to have someone optimistic taking on this position because, no, that's what's really needed in a really humanitarian outlook. Because it's a tough job, and I'm wondering how you were recruited, why you decided to take this on, because it's quite a challenge.
When I got the call, I love challenges, but also I think being retired, I have kind of a different outlook and more of a, not departmental policy, you gotta do this, that. It's more, hey, let's try something new, you know, and that's what I really try to do. You're not gonna change everybody's minds. But I've always been an optimist, and, you know, it's, one thing I always say is, you know, if lead fails, it's not gonna be because of me. And I'll tell you that, but I don't see lead failing, it's gonna be here, but, yeah, it's just a different outlook on life and the community, you know, not being in law enforcement anymore, but I'm still kind of quasi law enforcement because I work with law enforcement, but I come with a different perspective, and I think it really helps having a program manager who was prior to law enforcement. Not that I'm saying other program managers who aren't law enforcement can't do a great job, because I know a lot of great program managers, but I'm the only retired law enforcement program manager in New Mexico for me. All the rest are, and they're great. They're doing a great job, but I think it helps because I kind of talk the talk and walk the walk a little bit. I think that's really helped get buy-in with law enforcement in the communities, because I know what I'm talking about. So.
Have all the programs going nationally, have all the lead programs, they're all still extant, or have some of them just quietly faded away?
Ooh, Albany, New York. I actually talk almost weekly with Chief Cox, who's retired from Albany, New York, and their program is still up and running. They've been around for 10 years. Some fade away, it's just they lose interest, lose funding, but LEAD is really taken on nationally. I mean, LEAD is all across the nation. Buffalo, New York, Albany, Philadelphia is starting theirs. It's just everywhere. I don't think I've seen any from Florida. I'm in national meetings every week with everybody from all over the country, and I don't think I've seen any from Florida yet.
What do you say, you communicate with them every week, or, oh wow, so you guys have like a sort of.
Oh yeah, we have program manager national meetings, law enforcement national meetings, state-based grant national meetings. It's so many meetings, but it's all lead connected.
Oh, wow.
And then we're also presenting next month at the Global Law Enforcement Conference, where Bernalillo County was selected to present with South Africa and London on intervention programs, deflection programs. So it's called GLEPHA, GLEPHA.
Is it happening in London?
It's online.
Oh, what a shame.
But next year it's supposed to be in Switzerland, so.
Switzerland.
So what the perspective from, are you gonna bring from Bernalillo County?
Just kind of what we're doing.
What things are you gonna emphasize? We're not gonna be at the meeting, so it's okay.
Emphasizing changing culture in law enforcement, how a diversion program can be successful. What were the barriers, some of the hurdles, how do you get buy-in? So that's really what we're gonna do. And so far, we've been relatively successful here in Bernalillo County, and Bernalillo County also just got the National Counties Award for LEAD. Out of all the counties in the United States, Bernalillo County got the national award for the LEAD program for what we did during these past 2.5 years. It's called NACO, National Association of Counties. Yeah, it should be a great conference. I think you guys can register for it. It's pretty much open. It's like 3 days, but some people have to log on at like midnight because of the time changes, so don't log on.
So UNM is doing this as part of the research of program outcomes, is that right?
Yes.
And is any of that going to be published sometime?
I believe the initial report, I'll get it to you. The initial report has been published, but that was kind of a real small snapshot when it first started. And then I believe a gentleman by the name of Alex, he's our independent social research that the county contracted out with. So like we're not evaluating ourselves. So UNM is evaluating us as far as the program, and he's like one of those statistician type of guys. So his stats are very, I don't want to say elaborate, but they're very, you know, there's no nonsense or there's no ambiguity. The stats, I mean, the stats are the stats. But yes, I'll get you those.
You work closely at all with CISU, formerly CIT, now CISU?
I'm sorry.
CIU, I'm getting them as.
Crisis intervention.
Sorry, crisis intervention unit.
That's actually, I used to run the crisis intervention unit. Yeah, I work very closely with them. So Shannon, Detective Shannon, is the lead point of contact for APD. We schedule a lot of training. Like I was just at the CIT training on Tuesday, talking about leads, all the students. Yeah, I work very closely with them. The mobile crisis teams, we have fire mobile crisis teams. The sheriff's department has mobile crisis teams. Everybody's trained up in lead. All of ACS is trained in lead. And then I think I just had some training scheduled for September to train the new ACS people coming on board. So yeah, I work very closely with all of them. All of them used to work for me, and now they're all our commanders and lieutenants. And they're running the show now.
So they don't touch you, but they're all up and call you sir anymore.
Yeah, I think the commander actually used to be an officer who was a CIT officer. He's like one of the best CIT officers ever. And now he's the commander of CIT. So, yeah.
He presented last month?
That's right, yeah.
Last month on MRAC.
Okay.
So,
I started in fact.
no way. Oh my
It's
God.
part of the DOJ stuff. Yeah, it was one of my paragraphs that I was in charge of.
Oh,
If I were an officer juggling a lot of things, a little bit less paperwork doesn't sound like a great incentive for me to refer a lead. Have you thought about having more recognition for, you know, success within the precincts or?
Great question. So I've always been very big on recognition, whether it be writing up officers for awards or, you know, coffee cup award or whatever. So one of the very first things I did when I came on board as a lead program manager was I said, who's our biggest producers? And Alex Castellano got a lead award in front of the chief because we put him in for it because he had the most lead referrals out of anybody in the city. So he did get an award, and we keep track of that. We keep track of what officers are making referrals, where they're making referrals, and how many. So.
and this is encouraging for you that you have a high proportion of officers making referrals. You said that the old school ones prefer not to do it, but you have a reasonable amount or a promising amount of officers making referrals.
It's a reasonable amount, but it's usually the same ones. And Alex with ISR with UNM is trying to find out why that is. Why is it just the same officers over and over and over again do our lead referrals, which is awesome, but we'd like to see more from kind of the whole plethora of officers.
You presented the academy.
Not yet. I have presented to the field training officers because it's so that was kind of the end around because it's very hard to get time with the cadets because of the state requirements. Their days are very regimented. So what I proposed was, why don't we use the field training officers as a trainer because a cadet, it's like drinking through a fire hose during the academy. They're not going to remember. But if I hit the field training officers, if they're out in the field and Rochelle here is going to do an arrest, me as the field training officer can say, hey,
Don't pick on her.
this would be a great lead referral. Oh, tell me about me. So that's, you know, kind of a trainer. So I have trained almost all of the APD's FTOs. I think there's another batch coming up. And that was kind of the end around of not being able to train in the academy, but when you train the field training officers.
The academy used to have one day for, how did Adrian Lloyd put it, for a sort of dog and pony show for different agencies, different departments to come and present to the cadets, and of course that probably went.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's just, they're inundated with so much information, so much training. you know, it's very hard, you know, basically what they want to do in the academy is just meet their state requirements and graduate the academy. It's very hard to bring in outside curriculum other than what's required by the state for, I don't know, what is it, coming now, like 760 hours of training over 6 months, something, so.
It's reduced when we went even, because I think when we went, it was 800 hours minimum.
Yeah, I think when I went through back in 96, 97, it was 709 hours, and I know it's, I mean, that's.
It's less than that now. I mean, the states dropped their academy to 16 weeks total. Ours is still 27 weeks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it for in addition to state requirements, but I mean, that's because the state does multiple agencies and wants to farm them back out and say, you guys teach them whatever you need to teach them. And APD, we're teaching everyone that's gonna be working for us for the most part, so we take a lot more time to teach them.
Yeah,
Everything
curriculum
related
is
to-
a lot tougher now with the DOJ and there and everything else. It's a whole different ballgame. When you went through, you just skated through, you would have a hard time now.
Yeah.
Finish last.
Yes.
I've said in some of those classes, it's like, whoa.
It's a lot of information they have to go through.
One of the things you remind me of, is the county, you're a county lead, but you're basically the leader. This program, the program involves the county and APD.
Yes, sir.
Because there's an APD policy and SOP
Yes.
to cover this, and presumably if APD goes into trouble to make a policy, they want the procedures to be happening at some level.
Yeah, and again, we have an MOU signed, and it's gonna have to be updated this year because we will probably have a new sheriff, probably have a new district attorney. So we'll update our MOU that, you know, the city's involved, the county's involved, the DA's office signs the MOU, the district attorney signs the MOU, the public defender chief person signs the MOU. So we have all the major stakeholders of the city that makes things happen within the MOU, and it's really great, you know, again, being in the position that I'm at, is I can make a call right up to the 5th floor. And like, we needed a letter of support for something. I call it,
The chief.
oh, I'm sorry, the chief's
Chief's
office. Because it's on the 5th floor, so we just call it the 5th floor.
It's
You
like
know,
where is the 7th floor?
11th.
Same deal.
He's a word.
I'm able to get things done like quickly because it helps, like, I know a lot of people and the program is accepted, and I think I got a letter of support within 45 minutes that we had to
So
send.
the county commissioners are really behind this program, but like, the ones that I've spoken with.
Could I ask a question about the
Yes, sir.
collaboration between the APD and the sheriff's department? What's that like? Because I know the guy's running for, one of the guys running for sheriff, and he thinks that he's gonna work on that for just a month.
I can't comment, you can comment.
Yeah, I can comment on it. So what I've seen throughout my career is not just here, but everywhere. Everything's very silent. County does their own thing, city does their own thing. There's not a whole lot of collaboration. Lee really broke down those silos because the sheriff's on board. I have the sheriff's designated, a lieutenant is the point of contact for Lee. I have a sheriff's deputy that I work with. We go out and do grip operations. We do a lot of stuff together.
That's the current sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Behind it. What would it be true that he would be back that, but he wouldn't back other areas where there's collaboration, as according to what I've heard? Let's put it that way. So why is this a special case? If it is, I'll correct that, I don't know what.
You know, honestly, I can't speak for the other stuff, but I just can, I can speak for Lee, and that I think Lee is good for the community. Not that I'm saying these other programs aren't good for the community, but there's just a lot of buy-in for Lee, because it goes back to, we have to do something different. We have to try something different, and I think Lee is that direction. I can't speak to the other programs, but like I had an undersheriff call me. He's like, hey, tell me about this lead. And he's like, we're doing these meetings. I was like, oh, let me know when and where. And all show up. So there's an interest in it because the county commissioner's behind it, the city council's behind it. You know, the chief's office is behind it, the sheriff's behind it, the district attorney is behind it. So I think that's what makes Lee different, is we've really broken down those silos.
What about the rank and file? Does that make a difference? I mean, you got the leadership, but
I think it really starts with frontline leadership. You know, I was a sergeant a long time, I was a sergeant almost 8 years. And I really think it starts with the first line supervisors. And we have seen that. I went out on a graveyard briefing with the deputies, with the sheriff's department, and the sergeant was like, oh, I really like this. And he's like, I want to see this, I want to see this. Yes, it's discretionary, but this, he's like, you sold me. And that was on a graveyard briefing. I said, oh, yes, you know, that's what I'm here for. And so it really comes from the first line supervisors. If they're saying, hey, I support you, I would like to see more lead referrals, I think that goes a long way.
Doesn't it also help that the officers don't get tied up in court if the referrals are successful? If they refer someone and you come get them, or the caseworker comes gets them, does that alleviate the court appearances of
Yes.
the officers?
Yes, it
I
does.
can understand why the leadership likes that.
Yeah.
Other reasons, but I can understand.
Anything to
why.
reduce time away from families and personal obligations, because the majority of people that go to court are on their time off.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I didn't
So,
realize
I
that.
mean, here we don't have night court, so the guys and gals that are working graveyard or late swing, they go to court during the day when they should either be home asleep or with their families, and they're not at home.
So
So
it's never on work time that they go to,
for day shift, yes, and part of swing shift,
okay,
but
okay.
swing shift and graveyard and some of our specialized units that don't work during the day, they have to come in on their days off.
And we worked graveyard for years and years
Yeah.
together, and I remember getting off at 4, and I'd have court at 8 AM. And I'd be in
So
court
I'd go
from
home
8
and-
AM till 2.
I'd go home, sleep in my car for a couple hours with 3 alarms on, and because if I went inside and lay down, I wasn't getting back up, and then I'd get in trouble for not going to court. So I would sit there with 3 alarms on for people to call me, and I'd get up and just go, and I haven't slept anywhere other than the car.
Or if you look at that cost savings alone, more court means
Minimum 2
minimum
hours.
overtime budget for the department, and turn around and use that money to send someone to training, or send someone to buy these vehicles, or, you know, anything. I mean, you could reallocate that money for anything, you know, instead of, or you could reduce their overtime budget.
would more cops mean more likelihood that they'd be doing, you know, experimental or new things like weed?
Yeah.
Because that's a huge issue.
What, our policemen are?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, oh yeah, that's 100%.
Well, let's put it this way, when I was a Southeast sergeant on graveyard, I had 14 people in my one squad.
We're lucky to get like 6 or 7 now.
The last project I did in the southeast, there was 3 of us, 3 officers, and I don't count.
Yeah, it's
I was in charge of
it's
it.
rough, especially when we have
3,
mandatory
and
training or
2 of them got
vacation.
pulled off for use of force.
So,
Only one person at a time. because
Sorry.
of the operations.
I can't hear what you're saying.
See? I asked my kids. Well, that was amazing. Thank you. It's really interesting to learn about that. And speaking personally, when it comes to fentanyl production, fentanyl addiction, the book that Commander Diesel recommended last month, The Least of Us, I cannot recommend it enough. It
He said
talks
the book.
about how,
And his stories in the book.
yeah,
many stories in the book. I'm not there yet, I'm waiting for it.
And I'm so sorry, one thing I forgot to mention is the referral form is actually on the DBHS website. It's under services, you just click lead,
DBHS,
DBHS@burco.gov,
that's an acronym. What is it?
Department of Behavioral Health Services.
Okay.
So DBHS@burco.gov. And we're working on referral forms where you can just fill it out and then submit it.
When I went to get it, I went to behavioral health services under the county. then I click campus services, and then I click lead.
Lead, yes. So right now you have to download it and save it as a PDF. You can fill it out and then send it to the case managers on the lead CM at vertical.gov. But what I'm trying to do with our IT is just make it fillable right there online and then submit, and it goes straight to our case managers if a community member or business member wanted to make a referral. So we're working on it, trying to make things easier.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Awesome. Thank you. Please call me, get a hold of me.
Good to see you, sir.
What's that?
Good to see you.
You too?
Martha Weeder is going to talk about the aftermath of Coronado Park.
It's actually a lot better than I thought it was
I
gonna be.
know, this is weird. Where are they?
No, I'm good. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So, as far as updated stats, Laura had started working on them yesterday, so they're updated for today. And she ended up calling in sick. She hurt her back. So I don't have those updated stats and I don't have access to that. But as far as Coronado Park, I can talk about and what happened. But as Rowan said, where did they go? The last day before the park officially closed, because we had been told it was going to be closed by the end of the month. We didn't know exactly when it was closing. We were meeting daily to figure out where we were at with resources and, fencing around the vacant lots around the Wells Park area. I don't know if you've seen any of that. We have a lot of fences up throughout the Wells Park neighborhood to prevent encampments from building onto those areas. The park across, or the vacant lot across from the fire station at 3rd and McKnight. We have some on Aspen, on Summer, and so that was a good thing that the city did, and we haven't had anybody try and go back into Coronado Park since we closed it. We have cameras that monitor it at night when there's not a security guard present, but during the day, we've had today, if anyone's driven by, they're almost done with the tree service and removal. And then they're gonna start working on the fence and then start working on some of the other landscaping things. And I think they're gonna end up repurposing or removing the skate park equipment, because right now it's not being used. It should be somewhere that can be used.
And has the population increased downtown?
Not,
I walked through a lot and I haven't seen.
I talked to
any
my
unusual.
downtown officers and they said that they haven't seen much of an influx. They've ran into a couple people that have come from Coronado Park, but to be honest, I drive around the Wells Park area probably 2 or 3 times a day on my way or from meetings just to see what's going on. First and Indian School is where we moved the pickup and drop off the the WEC, the West Side Shelter. People
It's
will
on
call.
First now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's under the freeway, First and Indian School.
Okay.
So no one is physically at the park anymore for drop off, because we were gonna close the park and then use that as a drop off point, but it's a bad spot because you have a lot of traffic that comes through there, and the majority of them are not paying attention. And that's all we need is somebody to get hit. We've already had a bunch of people crashed into there. First and Indian School, there's not a lot of traffic. The traffic that does come through there is a lot slower, and it's a straight shot. It's closer to the Rock, closer to Steel Bridge for the additional resources. Solid Waste has been helping us every day, multiple times a day, going through there, ensuring there's no encampments. If there is, they're picking them up. Family Community Services and ACS has been phenomenal with resources and outreach. We had 28 people, I think, the day before the park closed, finally accept services, and about 12 of those people, 12 or 13, were absolutely against any services. So like, nope. But when they knew the park was coming to a close and they didn't have anywhere to go, they finally accepted it. One of the other issues was the crime boss of
Yes.
Coronado Park. Right.
Terrifying.
He was terrifying. He was charging these people space rent. He would tell them that you can have this part of the property in the park, would draw out a square, and if you pass that, you're gonna have to pay me double occupancy. So it was drugs, guns, money, property. That's what he was taking in return for allowing people to stay in there in.
I saw
in a
in the
portable
journal
park.
that he had an obscene amount of fentanyl.
He was one of the major players in that seizure of 4,500 pills. And, you know, a lot of the people that are selling dope to are vulnerable, unhoused folks. It's just making it worse. They're just feeding it. And then, as Glenn said, you know, just feeding it until you need it again. Feed the need, and well, that high is not as good as it used to be. So now I'm going to buy double the amount and then triple the amount, and then they're dead. So it's frustrating, but you know, a lot of the parks, or excuse me, a lot of the people that were residing in the park that did not want to accept services, or not yet, they're interested, they're in contact with FCS and ACS, but they're just not right there, as Glenn said. And I think one of you said that it's continuing to go after these folks and say, hey, we want to help you, we want to get you off the street. And it takes sometimes 2 times to 1,000 times of contacting these people, again, to build a rapport and break down the distrust. But
The numbers have increased in the month before that, right?
yes,
So that
we've had,
was there some success that Albuquerque Community Service had?
and
And
FCS.
what services did they get people into?
So a lot of them have got vouchers to stay in hotels that they've worked. I mean, we have a list of hotels that accept vouchers that are through grants in the city, and it's 2 or 3 weeks worth of vouchers. Get them off the street, get them warm or and showered, get them, help them build resumes, help them look for jobs, and then help them start getting in on the list for housing. You know, the list is long for housing, but FCS and ACS is being able, somehow they're able to kind of get that going quicker than normal. So it's fantastic. I think last week we had 3 people that have been waiting on for like 2 months for a house, and they're in a house now.
That's not very long.
No. So like I said, in years past, it's been like 6 months to a year, but the folks at FCS and ACS, I don't know what they're doing. I'm not gonna ask, but they've been able to get stuff done a lot faster. But again, as far as where are some of these people going, you know, you'll drive around and you'll see individual pockets, but a lot have gone to other parks and other area commands. In the southeast, we've had a lot go to Filch, Cone, and Wilson. We are trying to work with APS. There's a lot of multi-use parks that are connected to an APS school or related to an APS school. So we're working out an MOU or MOA to ensure APS can have full jurisdiction out there and help us with some of those encampments at the parks, especially when school's in session and there's children present. Then there's immediate removal capabilities. You know, downtown, like in the Valley Area Command specifically, I could talk about, but in the past, we've offered a lot of resources, and even the ones that don't want to take it, we just keep offering resources, and we're letting them break the law all day, all the time. Whether it's erecting a structure in a park, drinking in public, blocking a sidewalk, panhandling is a whole nother issue, but standing in the roadway. If you're standing in the roadway and you're not physically in the median asking for money or whatever you're asking for, you can't be in the road. You can't be blocking sidewalks. Trespassing on people's property, whether it's private or business, you can't do that. So it's 0 tolerance. We're going out, we're warning these folks, we're identifying them, we're running them for warrants. We're adding their information to a CAD system with the address. So if another officer goes out and, hey, you know, John Doe is back at this location, they were given a warning yesterday not to be here, here's your citation. And then we will progress to arrest. You know, I'm sure all of you have heard of the McClendon settlement with the counties in the city. When they created that, it says, here's a list of stuff you can't do, but they didn't tell us what we could do. So the chief's office is working on that, trying to get something pushed out. But if you read through it, they just don't want us arresting people for low-level crimes. That's why we are progressively going from warning to arrest, because you can't break the law without some kind of consequence. I don't know where people got that idea, during COVID, the height of COVID for those couple years. We tried to limit contact with people because we didn't want to take home whatever they had to our families. We didn't want to get each other sick. So we kind of let people hang out at Coronado Park without any kind of recourse. We weren't bothering people that were laying in the sidewalks. So we need to take that back, just like the traffic division's doing with enforcement. Because, you drive on our streets, people are maniacs. They drive so ridiculous that, when we were younger, even now, if there's a copy out there, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not doing anything, but I'm like, oh my God. And you'd slow down even if you weren't speeding. Yeah, it's scary. I mean, but now people drive by, they'll flip you off. They don't care. I mean, look at the automated speed cameras. It is showing a trend downwards on all of our camera systems as far as the more egregious speed. So it is helping. And then adding officers to those areas and then the surrounding areas, it's helping. I mean, we caught a guy doing 150 miles an hour on eastbound Gibson on automated speed camera. If he would have hit something, there would have been nothing left of either. It's just ridiculous. But we're working on getting more cameras in the valley. Right now we have the one on Central by New York. We're working on for specifically events at Bio Park where Pranoy and his dad were hit. There is a tunnel that goes underneath Central. Most people didn't even know about. It's where the train goes through.
Really?
But so there's the train tunnel, and then next to it, there's a pedestrian walkway that's paved. I'm working with DMD to get some lighting in there. So during the River of Lights and any events at night, or well, anytime, people can park at Tingley Beach and walk underneath Central, so they don't have to worry about crossing. That's just some of the stuff, safety stuff we're doing. Downtown, if you haven't driven around downtown, and when I say downtown, I mean from about Lomas to Cole, Broadway to 12, you won't really see any camps anymore. My folks down there are just hammering everybody. Even though the few that have come down from Coronado Park, they didn't necessarily set up a camp, but they brought all their personal effects.
Tree synchronizing things.
Well, they've been hammering it, the zero tolerance downtown. They've moved into traffic enforcement downtown a lot more. I did get more downtown swing set officer openings, and they just closed. I'm gonna have another bike officer starting next Saturday for the downtown and valley, well, the whole area command. Manpower, it's an issue everywhere. I might be losing a couple to SWAT, because SWAT just tested and a bunch of people passed for SWAT. And I think three of my younger officers tested for SWAT. If they got it, then I'll lose them all, and then I'll have to try and steal some more from somewhere. But we're trying as much as we can, trying to keep everybody safe.
But one other thing, when you
Yes, ma'am.
arrest someone and they go through the court system, you know how many politicians when they run for office say, and then there's the revolving door. I mean, it's real, isn't it? If you arrest someone, you've barely finished paperwork.
It's frustrating.
Already out.
My guys arrested, my downtown guys specifically arrested an individual who's homeless. They've given him, I think, more warnings than you would ever consider, even as just a citizen. They're like, nope, we wouldn't give him another warning, and they do. They've worked with him, try to get him resources. He doesn't want to listen to us, and he just bothers everybody. He fights with people, he's disorderly, he cusses at people, kids walking by, he'll scream obscenities, and it's disorderly conduct by statute. Well, everybody's afraid to, again, I'm trying to, in the valley at least, I'm trying to get rid of that. You can't arrest. BS. If you can cite them, you can arrest them. You have to go up the ladder. I mean, but at this point, they've given him so many opportunities to stop doing what he's doing. They arrested him. They took him to the PTC, the Prisoner Transport Center at Fort Roma. We now have case initiation there from Metro Court. We have somebody there that hears the case, looks at it, and they'll determine if the person's going to be ROR or sent to the jail. By the time they got back in their cars and drove back and parked downtown, he was already walking downtown. And he was up to the same old shenanigans. Well, he was mad at the police. Next day, he catches two people burglarizing somebody's business downtown, and runs over to the same officers that arrested him and said, hey, they're breaking into that place. So we got him in custody. So I went and asked him today when I left my other meeting before I came here, I'm like, why did you go over there and talk to him? He's like, well, because they treated me with respect. He's like, I'm stupid and I piss people off. I don't like most cops, but they treated me with respect. And when I got out, I was stupid again, but you know, it's not right that what somebody was doing. So I reported it to the same people I arrested. So I was like, all right, well, at least my guys are treating you with respect. It's frustrating. I mean, literally, if you have to take them up to the jail, by the time you get done and finish uploading your video and complete your report, they could be on a bus downtown.
But you just, it makes sense to keep arresting. I mean, there's no other.
Yeah, I mean, if they're breaking the law, they need to go to jail. I mean, one way or another, a lot of the problem is competency. The judges will say, well, they're not competent to stand trial. Well, we gotta do something with them because they can't just keep breaking the law and victimizing people.
We need to start booking people at the county jail to walk back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating.
It's like I was walking by the Kima not so long ago, and there was a gentleman on the sidewalk, and he was throwing up, and he was throwing on the sidewalk, and I briefly thought, he's on the sidewalk, that's not legal, should I call the police?
Yeah, call.
I know, but there was, you know, by the time the police.
No, man,
Actually, the
call.
manager at the Kima called the police.
I walked by the chemo last week and there was a guy with a couch. He put a couch in there. They had rolled up the doors. He put a couch in there. And like, within like 20 minutes of them rolling up the doors, I'm like, what is going on here? He's like, some guy brought it and says, you want a couch? I said, yeah. So, I mean, we're trying, it seems like we're pushing them around and around, and technically right now that's what we're doing, because if they don't like services, we can't force them to take services. I know there's some people in the neighborhood that are trying to push for forced mandated court stuff. I'm all for it. If you can make somebody go to mental health treatment or drug treatment and get them off the streets and get them in a better place, then we won't have to deal with them anymore. I'm all for it. But I mean, I've been doing this a long time. And
Another topic, what's your opinion of county workers being advised to carry mace with them?
Pepper spray.
Pepper spray. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
you're talking about
mace.
downtown.
Yeah, downtown.
I mean, I think if you can carry pepper spray anywhere, it's your, I mean, you have the right to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You just gotta be careful. I mean, you gotta know what you're doing. Glenn, he teaches a concealed carry class on his off time. He owns a company. Well, I've seen some people that have gone through some concealed carry classes and I'm like, oh, it's the best thing ever. I was like, how much did it cost? $48. I got a Groupon. I was like, okay. So let me ask you a couple questions about firearm safety. Well, I don't know anything about that. I'm like, well, what did you learn? Well, they helped us with our test and we went to the range and shot some ammo, and I was like, what'd you shoot? What'd you qualify with? I don't know, I just shot it. He says, all right, you passed. I'm like, well, that doesn't help anything. If you're not trained on it, I'm gonna take your gun from you, I'm gonna shoot you if I want to. Because if you don't know weapon retention, if you don't know how to disengage, if you don't know how to talk to people with a weapon in your hand, you're gonna get taken from you, especially, you know, convicts, people in prison, they train how to disarm cops. They train how to take a knife from when cops have it in a holster here. They train for that. They train how to take your legs out while you're riding. They train for all this stuff. And then here in New Mexico, being such a big mixed martial arts community, I get nervous, especially if I'm dealing with anybody around Jackson Wink. I'm like, well, here we go. I hope I don't fight someone. John Bones Jones. Luckily, I've got a great rapport with him. I would not fight that guy because he would kill me because of his skill, and it's not where I'm at. But if a county employee, I think if they're gonna allow it to be done, then there should be some kind of training that would go with it. Hey, if you're gonna carry it, you carry it on this type of keychain, you carry it in your weak hand. Something like that related to other weapons that law enforcement and security carry, but that's just my opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of APD.
So you talk about the hassle of trying to get people to take services.
Yeah.
To what extent is Albuquerque Community Service taking that burden off the officers?
So ACS, I mean, just so in September, there'll be 1 year since they went live, and I think they're at 16,000 calls were serviced that they've taken off of our plate, from down and outs to welfare checks to mental health calls. You know, not every mental health call needs a badge and gun. Having someone that, you know, I've done a lot of crisis negotiation training. I'm certified in CIT, ECIT, and CNT, and I'm really good at talking to people. I'm patient. I've got a background in the military, so if it's somebody in crisis in the military, I'm pretty good at building rapport. But a lot of younger officers, we try and teach them that, but if they're 21 and 22 and have no life experience, they've never communicated or had a conversation other than this or like this, it's hard for them to communicate. So ACS, all the people have some kind of background in either mental health, substance abuse, or social work. And having them being able to go out and figure out where these people are coming from. Like, how did you end up here? Like Glenn was talking about earlier, how did you end up at this point in your life? Did it start with your family? Is there something that I need to help you with to get your family back together? Is it, you know, did your parents, like your parents died, your mom was single and she couldn't take care of you, or whatever the background was, they can dig into that. They have the time to figure out to try and get these people the correct help, the correct resources. I don't have time for that. I got to go to the next call for service. And with them taking that off, I mean, we do have the opportunity to do more proactive enforcement and taking people that need to be taken to jail and jack them up. Hey, you're going to jail. You messed up. You know what? You learn from it. But if you keep messing up, I'm going to take you to jail. I think they're great, and they're really good at partnering with us with solid waste, both FCS and ACS, especially like, you know, in the motor unit the last 3 years, I didn't really deal with homelessness. I was like, oh yeah, I saw a homeless person. Okay, well, I'm going to a fatal crash. I'll go deal with that. Now that I'm versing it, every week I meet with FCS, ACS, and solid waste probably 3-4 times a week about encampments and about the resource and outreach that FCS and ACS is doing. And I was pretty surprised on what they can and can't do. They have so many hands everywhere, and they have a ton of businesses, coalitions that want to help. And, you know, everybody's like, oh, you're going to close Coronado Park. You don't have a plan. Oh, that's crap. There's a plan. They've done so much outreach. There's so many steps they've gone through to try and get this closed with as many people off the street or in some kind of resources to be followed up on. And the news, you know, I'm not a fan of the news, and I'll say that live, but they say one thing, but no one ever asks what's actually going on. So like these meetings are fantastic. I just left another meeting and they asked about Coronado Park. So I'm able to tell them because this is the stuff that's going on. My bike guys, the days that they close the park on Wednesday, every other Wednesday to clean it out, my bike guys will go out there and say, hey, remember tomorrow morning, you have to be out of the park by 7. If there's some stuff here that you want, that you cherish, that personal belongings that you cherish and you don't think you'll have the time, you don't have the resources to move it, let me know. FCS and ACS, they have storage facilities for people's belongings. Right now, when we closed Coronado Park, solid waste donated, I think 90, you know, the big residential trash cans, 90 of those for people to put their belongings in. So they didn't have to tote them around. They would lock them up. We give them a lock. They could keep a key, goes into a secured building. No one's going to get to it. I think only 10 people took everybody up on that. Everybody else you see walking down the street with 50 baskets. I'm like, what are you doing? That's the other thing, trying to deal with baskets. A lot of the businesses don't want them back, so they don't want to press charges.
Well, they don't want them back.
No,
What is FCS?
family community services.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Well,
We got a lot of acronyms in this.
I just want to say that as a resident, we live in Hazeltine.
Okay.
Based in the community park. And we can feel what you're doing, so thank you, because we were sitting there, like, and we've been there for 2 years, we had lots of incidents, you know, from bicycle theft to dog attacks to people jumping my fence and telling me they just got out of prison and having
I thought you were at a
weapons,
friend's house.
weapon in the alleys and stuff like that, and the response time was pretty bad. And when I hear about Coronado making it worse, I felt like, here we go, but It's been better. We haven't seen, and in conjunction with ACS, we've seen them hit the Morales Community Center, every Monday, so the kids are safe, and the needle patrol comes out right away. And just seeing the activity and seeing the cars and the officers, ACS, really, I think has made a difference. And we just had one where if I had known what I learned this week at ACS, I would have said, give me an ACS guy, because we had someone that was delusional,
Yeah.
that jumped into my neighbors who weren't there, and we wasted 2 officers' time to get them out of there, and all they could do was just move them. So ACS probably has to deal with it anyway, so some of that is me not knowing what to do, it's not you, but I just want to let you know, because we all complain that it takes, I know it takes 45 minutes or an hour to get through 311, and I don't like the answers I get on 911 sometimes, but I want to say I see a difference, and I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, and remember the apps, the 311 apps and the APD apps, those are a lot faster than trying to get through on phone.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, like I said, I fell down off a ladder and screwed my hope, and my wife was on the phone for 13 minutes with 911. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, and you're sitting there going like, are you safe now, sir? Until this guy jumps the fence, I'm pretty safe.
Yeah. I know it's frustrating, and they're short-staffed, they've lost a lot of people, they're trying, I mean, they're force mandating overtime every day, and they're like our folks in the field, they're just exhausted. They're trying to take care of their family, but they're at work.
From your perspective, what is keeping their more officers in Iowa? Is it their budget doesn't allow?
Oh, no, our budgets, I think we're allotted for 1,100 cops.
Really?
Yeah, and everyone has their own ideas. I think, the DOJ being here, everyone thinks it's bad. I mean, they found there was a pattern or practice of us doing something wrong. Since then, we've come so far. Like our documentation, the way we investigate things has just come so far. Like me, I'm proud to say, I'm glad they were here. Cameras, implementation of cameras. That's probably the best thing that's come out of all of this, because cameras save us so much. If officers get in trouble on their camera, good. I'm glad you got caught. You need to deal with what you did. If you don't belong here, get out. I don't want bad cops in our department. I don't want them protecting the community I live in or I serve. They shouldn't be cops. A lot of it is, bad publicity from the community, from the news. Money, we're good. I think we are the highest paid department, or if not second. And I mean, the retirement benefits, fantastic. Our medical, we don't pay that much for medical. The city puts in a lot of money towards our retirement monthly or weekly, bi-weekly when I put our checks in. I don't know, I can't say 100% what it is, but a lot of it is rumors that, they're gonna discipline you for this. No, if you're getting disciplined, you're probably screwing up. And if you get disciplined over and over, it's probably because you don't fix yourself. You're grown men and women, you've got a badge and you've been entrusted with a gun and a lot of power, more power than pretty much anyone in the country. And you need to hold yourself accountable. That's the thing. When we're gonna hold you accountable, but you need to hold yourself accountable first. So, we're doing a lot of stuff for recruiting, retention bonuses, trying to keep people. The city's doing a lot of stuff with that. I mean, right now, like a topped out patrolman at 18 years gets an additional $630 a check just to stay with APD. Bi-weekly. Yeah, just to stay. And we just got to raise our second part of our raise in July. So most patrolmen are making about $35 an hour. That's a lot more than, I started as a cop in 2000. I think I made $10 an hour. Well, I thought I was rich. So I think it's just attitude, a lot of misconception about what we do. And I'll be honest, a lot of it's nationwide. Like, you guys are out there to kill people. You're out there to do this to people. You beat people. No, that's crap. I'll tell you right now, I don't want to know one cop that wants to come to work and shoot somebody. It is the worst thing you can experience is to be involved in an officer involved. My first day at the academy, I got involved in an officer involved shooting. And I was like, holy crap. I'm like, what did I get myself into? But, you know, I mean, it's part of the job, and the person that did it was not well and refused services, and he said he was gonna take us all out. But that, we don't wanna beat people, we wanna help people. I didn't join this job just for the money, I guarantee that. Because it's far from what you are here for. I mean, we like to help people, we wanna see our community safe. I grew up here, I grew up in the South Valley. Most of the people I grew up with are dead. I've arrested, they're in prison. I mean, I went to Rio Grande, I grew up in Los Feliz. I didn't want to be like that. I don't want, if I had kids, I didn't want to have my kids grow into that. We have a lot of laterals that are coming in recently, and those are they're sworn officers, certified officers from other states. And other parts of New Mexico, and then we've had some people leave to other agencies, but then like 3 weeks later, they're like, well, the grass isn't greener, I'm coming back to APD. APD, will you please take me back? I'm like, come on back, you didn't screw up, you just left, come on. So I don't know what our numbers are exactly as far as how many vacancies, but I mean, for the most part, morale is up. The chief's office has done a fantastic job with, you know, the DOJ, the monitor, and our settlement agreement, and I think, was it 25% we just got rid of as far as actively being monitored? We monitor ourselves now on those certain things. So I think by the end of the year, they want to get rid of another 25% that we can actively monitor on ourselves. And it's all about self-accountability. I mean, we've become such a great department, and I think other agencies are looking at what we're doing to ensure that, one, they don't go under a consent decree, and two, if they are in one, how are you guys fixing yourselves to make it better?
Do you think your sense of all of this is shared with most other officers?
No, because they're, yes and no. So no, because they're misinformed, they don't want to hear it, or they're listening to the wrong people.
These are the police we're talking about.
Yes. So a lot of, like Glenn was saying, a lot of older folks, you know, that have been in the job for 20 years or so, they don't want to change. They still have a flip phone. They're like, I don't want to fill it out. I want to write it out. Nope, that's not the way it works now. So it's trying to get them, it's not trying to get buy-in, but it's trying to educate them that this is better for everybody. It's better for the community. It's better for the department. It's better for your sanity, you know, going to work, ensuring that you know what the department is requiring and what the community requires of you. And I'm gonna do everything I need to do to make sure I go home safe and I follow the policy and state law and city ordinance.
How do you feel about your own safety?
I feel fine. I mean, you know, violent crime on police is, I couldn't even tell you, but I know it's in triple digits from where it was before. But with the training I know and always being vigilant, I have a good understanding of where I'm at and what situations are bad, where I need to call for help. I mean, I call 911 too. So I think Albuquerque itself is pretty safe. You know, a lot of the incidents that we've had are drug related or domestic violence related that are shootings or homicides or alcohol related.
Are you more likely, now, I know that gun, you simply can't let it go. So are you more likely to be hurt because somebody takes a swing at you or being shot? Now, what's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is being run over or burned. I don't, you can shoot at me, just don't burn me or run me over. But, you know, burn, I'm afraid of fire. I told my wife, you cremate me, I'm gonna come back for you. But no, you know, I don't know. Every day I kiss my wife by saying, hey, you know, I might not never see you again. And that's every day for the last 22 years.
She doesn't say, honey, why don't you do it?
Oh yeah, she keeps telling me to do that, but I like the job too much. I mean, I was in the military for 13 years too. I went to Iraq, and she's like, well, if you can do it, I mean, if you're gonna do it, just be safe. And that's what I tell my folks, just remember what you were taught, stay vigilant. I can't say trust no one, but be careful who you trust, because you'll have a lot of people that are trying be your friend, and then they'll turn around and stab you right in the neck, literally with a pen or a pencil. But shootings, you know, assaults on police across the world, but mainly the nation, and have been sky high, and it's scary, especially like Darian Jarrett, who was shot on a traffic stop from state police. I had met Darian, nice kid. It's just, my wife says, when it's your time, it's your time. I mean, I think about that now all the time. I'm like, well, if God's got a plan for me, then it's my time. So, I mean, I just try and stay focused on my training and what I know. And I mean, I'm always watching somebody's hands.
Sorry, I asked everybody's question, but what do you think gets to you more? Feeling unsafe or looking around at the dregs of society, let's put it that way, that you're constantly having to deal with?
My biggest frustration is people that don't want to change or get better. I mean, we deal with the same people over and over and over. Why are we here again, Michael? Well, because I wanted to see your face. No, it's not that. It's just, it's drugs and mental illness. A lot of it is a lot of our problems. You know, a lot of them will try and go into the rehab places, but then they'll get pulled right back out because their buddy's like, come on, man, I got it, just try it. Mental health. Mental health is a big thing, and a lot of our mental health problems are induced by drug use.
This is other people's, how about your own?
I mean, I talk to people, I mean, I've seen and been involved in some weird stuff in my career, and, you know, the biggest problems that I deal with are crimes where kids are victims. I mean, they're total victims. They have no say in what's gonna happen to them. I mean, taking fatal crashes where kids were involved, like the 2 kids that were killed on the Big I with their parents were drunk. Every time I drive by there, I see Amariah's face just laying there on the road. She was 7 years old, beautiful little girl, she died. So I mean, I talk to people about it. I mean, I can't keep them inside because then it does me no good except drive me nuts and eat it. A lot of our folks are prideful and they don't want to talk to anybody about what's going on. They're like, oh, no, I'll just hold on to it. And that's why cops kill themselves so much, because they don't want to be looked at as crazy, not strong or weak. And they're like, well, nobody wants to hear about my problems. That's why.
There are not mandated debriefings?
There are, so for certain, but, you know, mandated briefings. So like if we get into an officer involved shooting, the person that's involved, anyone that witnessed it, has to go to behavioral sciences to be interviewed and evaluated by our psychiatrists or our team. Those that are on the squad that were affected by it some way, we have our peer support groups. We brief with it, like me as the commander, I'll have my lieutenants ensure that they brief with the team, see if there's anything that they could have done better, some of the stuff that went well. Is there anybody that's having any issues with what's going on? You know, one of my guys got into a shooting a few months ago, and he's been having a lot of mental health issues. So I was able to kind of get him out of the field. I've got him assigned doing something else, and it's giving him that break of, well, I'm not going to go past this place and get into another shooting. So we take care of each other like that. Our behavioral sciences folks are fantastic, and you can call them 24/7. If you have to talk to somebody, we have a lot of resources. The peer support group, I mean, we have a civilian director or coordinator, but the majority of the peer support folks are cops. Because I don't want to call somebody that doesn't know what being a cop is about. They've never experienced anything that I've experienced. So if I call a cop and you can remain anonymous, and I mean, it's weird because I know most of the cops' voices that work for me. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I'm gonna pretend I don't know you, but that doesn't work. But I mean, if you wanted to, we also have contracted caseworkers that you can talk to if you don't want to talk to somebody in APD because you're embarrassed. It goes out and extends to our families, our kids. They can be seen by these people for free of charge if it's related to work incidents. But people are just afraid to ask for help. So we try and push that. We have behavioral sciences every year now birth month, you have to schedule a meeting with a psychiatrist or one of our counseling folks. You can go in there and sit there and do nothing, but at least we gave you that opportunity to talk. So I think it's a good thing that they're mandating that. It's kind of like our physical, medical physical, we're mandating that for your birth month as well. Just because a lot of cops die from heart attacks. I mean, not a lot of us eat very well. I like donuts. But I stress it, and I'm so busy, I don't take care of my physical self. I take care of my mental self, but that's a lot of the problems. We just are so busy, we forget to take care of ourselves and our families. So we try and push that, family first. The job, hang it up. When you're at home, you're at home. It's tough to do, especially, when you're a new cop. You want, oh, it's a blast. I want to tell everybody about, hey, guess what I did today?
Just like you went to sleep for a half hour.
Yeah, sorry. But it's just taking care of ourselves.
That's what I'm doing.
So, thanks, appreciate it with your sunglasses.
No, on this side.
All right, Rowan, I'm done.
That was
Just
me.
one final question. You're talking about the old school cops and how resistant they are to change. And I had a lovely conversation on Central one night with an old school cop who just slammed the unhoused community, had nothing good to say about them whatsoever, basically called them animals.
Yeah.
And are you seeing more tolerance and more close to respect with dealing with unhoused communities for your younger officers?
Yeah, I think it's more frustration because you're dealing with the same individuals over and over and over, and they just don't either get it or don't want to get it. So you get frustrated. In the past, you had cops that got in trouble for beating homeless people up.
Yeah.
And that's because they told them to leave and they didn't, so they beat them up. Well, those cops got arrested and they got charged. It depends. It's all about attitude, All of them on the street are out there for some reason or another. You got to kind of figure out what it is. Some people just prefer to be out there. I talked to a guy the other day and he's like, I don't want to go inside where I have to be caged in a house. I don't want somebody to tell me what I can and can't do. He bothers nobody. Other homeless
If you
people.
get everything for free, well, why should you care? You don't have to work, so why would you?
He actually has a lot of money from a family inheritance, but he doesn't do drugs. He doesn't bother
Oh, that's a
anybody.
good one.
He just wants to be outside. He wants to be homeless. He
He must
doesn't.
not live where I live.
Well, he actually hangs out around Wells Park, and he's got a lot of money. I've seen some of his bank statements, and I didn't believe it, and I was like, holy crap, can I borrow some? But it's just, you can't figure, you have to kind of figure out why they want to be out there. This guy just wants to be out there. He doesn't want rules.
I know another one like that. Yeah.
So, it's the tolerance, it's how you were raised, and how you're taught, and, how your field training officers instill certain things into you. The academy, the academy does a good job explaining, dealing with people with compassion, empathy. But I can't control anybody's ideas or the way they want to treat people. It's hard. I can only control what I can control, and that's myself. I can tell my people, hey, this is what I expect, but I can't get into their brain and say, hey, you're gonna do this the way I tell you.
This clock is not sprung forward.
7:47.
Yeah.
Peggy Nev had a bunch of comments online. She says an MOU in progress would be good, to structure an MOU with goals and build the capacity. And a map that shows real-time updates and strategy to involve neighborhoods and businesses, a separate homeless hotline matrix that will address those who would like to help and who abuse the law. And let's see, also, how did the talk over the cop at Walgreens go?
I actually had to go home for a dog emergency, but I was told it went well.
Okay. 1 out of 4 wings is out of commission in the jail, is that right expression?
I have no clue. I know they are like 50% staffing. They're extremely short, but they're working on an incentive package to get some more COs in there as well.
This is the jail now.
Yes, sir.
All right. And she says Wells Park would not agree that they are safe on the streets, on their street.
They would agree that they're not safe on the street?
They would not agree that they are safe. They would say they're not safe.
Well, I'm sorry, Peggy feels that way. I mean, if she sees something going on, she needs to report it. We're trying to get everywhere we can to be proactive enforcement and responsive enforcement to any types of calls that we're getting. I mean, it sucks that people don't feel safe. I mean, I take it personal because one, I'm a cop here, but two, it's my area of command. We're trying to hammer down all of this, trying to find our drivers of crime. Our gun violence reduction unit and gun violence suppression teams are doing a fantastic job and identifying those people. Our homicide units are killing it with, oh, well, that's kind of bad to say. They're doing a fantastic job on arresting homicide offenders and doing investigations. And a lot of our homicides that are multiple offender homicides, they are getting the feds involved so they can actually do some significant jail time. It's not just a, well, we'll just reduce it to trespassing kind of thing. It's, you're going to prison. But I mean, reporting things, we can, if you have ideas that you want to bring to the table, send me an email. Because I mean, it's not just about me, it's about everybody. I mean, some people come up with some fantastic ideas that, like, why did we never think of that? 22 years of doing this, I've never even thought of it. So, I mean, lighting, surveillance systems, we're trying to increase those throughout the downtown area and Wells Park area. I mean, just money's just an issue, but.
I have a question personally. When you get through the academy, how long do you have to be a beat cop before you can move to a specialty?
So each one varies, you know, so like SWAT, when you get off of OJT, you're a patrolman on probation or a patrolman second class for a year. Once you're off of probation, like SWAT, motors, narcotics, homicide, they usually want like 3 to 5 years as a patrolman, so you get that experience. I'll be honest, a lot of people don't want to go on call, like for motor, someone call 24/7. And you're technically on call for a certain period during the month, but you're on call 24/7. Every protest that occurred or demonstration that occurred in the past couple of years, motors was that, whether you wanted to be or not. So we couldn't get people to fill those, so we would have to reduce our requirement. You have some guys that were in motors after a year of being off probation. But then they leave because they're like, man, I still want to go be a beat cop. I want to go take people to jail and help people with domestic violence. So then they leave and then you're down people in motors. So it varies. We prefer people that are more experienced, like 3 to 5 years. I mean, that's not that much experience, but it's more than what we've seen in the past. But sometimes we can't get them filled and we have to fill those positions. So we'll reduce it to 1 year and sometimes non-probationary or some probationary, depends on what it's for. The motorcycle unit, the traffic division.
Kelly, you should do this.
Yeah,
Kelly would be great.
That's what my
I'd like to see her
email
on
is.
this.
you're so tall, you intimidate people anyway, so there you go.
And we were at CBQW.
Is there any way to set up a private meeting with you, one-on-one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Just
This isn't
send
my
me an
meeting,
email.
this isn't my meeting, I didn't want to, really, I can ramble on for hours, so I wanted to shut up and behave, I thought I did a good job.
I was very impressed telling your experience,
Oh. And I'm 2 years overdue on a ride along. You'll make number 12 if you approve it.
Actually, one of our members asked that question too.
I give you your email.
Okay, yeah, just have them email me and then,
So
I can
just,
set it
you
up.
know, yeah, so one of our other council members who couldn't be here tonight
Okay.
was asking how he could go about getting around.
Yeah, just send me an email and I can set it up.
What?
Should we get out of here?
We're working on it. Yes, we really should, because all these little teenagers want to go.
No, Laura's not gonna be here.
Oh, not at all.
No,
Do
Laura,
you have any prospects?
no, so she was working on it yesterday
Okay.
and she hurt herself.
Oh, no.
And she's been gone all day today, trying to take care of herself. I don't have access to her computer and I didn't know what she had pulled and I didn't know that she's gonna be sick. I've been in meetings all day.
Okay.
We'll get that.
So we can have it double for the next, we can have her produce for this one.
Probably help.
What's that, sir?
I would like